Before we get to today's podcast, we're excited to introduce you to our newest partner, which, like us, is Pure South Florida. That's Doral Toyota, where you can find all of your favorite Toyota models, whether you're looking for a new, used, or certified pre-owned vehicle. Doral Toyota is located at 9775 Northwest 12th Street. That's 9775 Northwest 12th Street, just a few blocks from International and Dolphin Malls. Experience the Doral difference, which means 4 years of complimentary maintenance and roadside assistance on all new vehicles. In-house financing is available for credit-related issues. Also, if you mention 5 Reasons when you call 305-680-1129, that's 305-680-1129, or come into the dealership, you work directly with a dedicated manager, not with a salesperson. Unlike other dealers, Doral Toyota prides itself on an honest and transparent buying process. That's Doral Toyota, DoralToyota.com, or stop in at 9775 Northwest 12th Street in Doral. Vamos, let's go. And now, on with the episode.
Welcome into another edition of the 5 Reasons podcast. My name is Chris Whittingham, joined as always by Ethan Skolnick. Be sure to subscribe to the other podcasts in the 5 Reasons Sports Network. But we want to get straight to our special guest today, joining us, the newly minted co-host of The Herd with Colin Cowherd, Herd on Fox Sports Radio and on television on FS1. Joy Taylor is with us today. Joy, you've been in Los Angeles now for 2 years. How's everything?
Everything's great. Hey guys, good to talk to you. Everything's great. It's incredibly hot in LA right now, which is weird to say after living in Miami for almost 10 years. But when they do a heat wave in LA, they do it right. But everything's great. I love LA. Miss Miami and people in Miami a lot. But as you said, I just moved over to the Herd from being on Undisputed for almost 2 years, and a little change of pace. But Colin's great. I've worked with him a lot. Obviously, filling in on the Herd while I've been out here. It was fun.
I mean, obviously, you mentioned how different it is, and obviously you have a radio background, but when Christine Leahy leaves the Herd, what sort of made you think that you wanted to go and do the Herd?
Well, Undisputed was something that came across kind of unexpectedly. When I first came to FS1, I remember Undisputed hadn't launched yet. Undisputed didn't launch until September. I came to FS1 in March. So I loved working with Colin. I'd filled in a lot for Christine before Undisputed launched, and you know, we're reaching kind of a time in the business, as you know. This is sort of the transition time between NBA and NFL. You always want to get big things done either at the start of NFL season or before NFL season starts. It's like just like weird insider stuff. But I've always wanted to work with Colin. He's great to work with, super laid back, and the opportunity presented itself, and it just made sense. I was excited to get back into radio. It's my first love. It's where I started. In the business, at Barry University in Miami, and interning at Power 96 and QAM, and obviously having the show at 790 for a couple years. So I was excited to get back into radio, being that my original background, and that's basically how it all worked out.
And Chris mentioned, obviously, adjusting to Los Angeles. So we've talked to George Sedano about this a little bit since he's gone out there. I think sometimes people equate people from Miami and Los Angeles a little bit because the climates are similar. People tend to care about their appearance maybe more than they would in other cities. Obviously, there's more to do outside. But if you were to give me, say, 2 or 3 things that are different between the people of Los Angeles and the people of Miami, what would they be?
Oh, I do see the comparisons. There are a lot of similarities to LA and Miami. I will say the weather is, I never thought I'd say this, but the weather is better in LA because you don't have the humidity. The beaches are not even close. Miami crushes it in the beach department, but I am somebody who doesn't like cold water. So, the tropical beaches in Miami are just not comparable to out here. Although you do have the views out here. So, it's like there's comparisons, and then there's things that you can enjoy in LA that you can't enjoy in Miami and vice versa. The people, I would say Miami is a bit more affordable than LA. So like just the real estate alone, cost of living, it's way more expensive out here. So I think you have the ability to go to Miami, party for, whatever people do. I don't know, like they're on their journeys. You can basically fake it in Miami a little bit easier than you can fake it in LA, because eventually you're going to have to find a place to live, and it is expensive to live out here. So that is one element of it. As far as the business goes, it's just a little different here. You know, Miami doesn't have the same structure as far as the show business element. So pretty much everyone you meet out here in one way or another is associated with the entertainment business, which is weird. Like even if you work in industrial stuff, some part of your life is associated with Hollywood because it's just strung into the fabric of everything out here. So that part of it is kind of interesting where like in Miami, everybody can do their own thing and have their own hustle. Everyone's kind of tied to the entertainment business in one way or another out here.
I don't know what the FS1 setup is like, but are you on the Fox lot? Like, are you walking past?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're walking past, like, movie studios on your way in to do your radio show. Like, I imagine that's a totally different experience than, obviously, going to Miami Gardens on 441 at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, the first time I came out here, it was really, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but it was really, like, life-changing. You know, you pull into the Fox Studios lot, and, you know, the entrance has Fox Studios on it, and you drive on, and there's the fake, you know, city to your left where they shoot, you know, the movie scenes, and you have the big studios in the back and the sound stages, and it's kind of like, wow, like this is where you work, you know, it's kind of humbling to do that, and then, you know, and anything like you do it every day, you kind of take it for granted. And moving to the Herd off of Undisputed was kind of like another moment for me to enjoy that, like to reflect on that, because I was like finishing my first, you know, national network show, my time on the first national network show, and moving to another one. You know, my last like week on Undisputed, I kind of took some time to like appreciate that. So just coming on the lot, you know, like this is really, I have a really cool job and I appreciate it. You know, and obviously like we've all worked for where we are in our careers, but it is something that I try to not take for granted that, you know, I get to work in Los Angeles on a, you know, network show with Colin and drive onto, you know, the Fox Studios lot every day. It's pretty cool.
In terms of your new role on the Herd, and I feel like this is sort of a common theme that ends up happening for the moderators on whether it's First Take or, in your case, Undisputed, where you kind of want to be able to contribute more, and obviously you did when you were, you know, sometimes hosting and other times co-hosting on radio. How much is that sort of desire to be multifaceted, give opinions on national television, and not just sort of drive the conversations like you were with Skip and Shannon? How much of that sort of adds to your desire to do your new job?
I mean, it's everything. Like what I came out here to do is to be full-time on a show as an opinionist. You know, I don't know if that's what we're calling it these days, host, opinionist, whatever. I don't like to call myself a journalist because I still hold a small part of my heart for true journalism and believe it still exists. So I don't want to put myself in that category because I'm not held to those standards. But yeah, like when I did the show in Miami with Zaslow, that's what we did, you know, all day long. And that's my goal always to do that. So coming to FS1, that was my goal coming in, and everyone here knew that. So, you know, Undisputed was an opportunity for me to grow as a talent. You know, I'd never done live television before. Live radio and live television are two different things. So, you know, I still had room to improve as a talent and grow and, you know, learn from someone, and Shannon Sharp is a great opportunity for me. So I believe in the process, as corny as that sounds, but I appreciate it even more now in my position than ever. Starting in the business as an intern, getting coffee, you know, putting together rundowns and booking guests and answering phone calls, screening callers and editing and doing that, coming up in the business and learning every aspect of the business really just has made me better as a talent. Because not only do I understand what the people around me are actually doing and having people around me that know what they're doing and appreciating it, but it also helps you prepare. Like the biggest thing to me about being great at what we do is being prepared and knowing what's happening, not just coming in and being like, all right, so tell me what happened last night, you know, like doing your research is super important. So yeah, I mean, being an opinionist and giving my opinion is always important to me. I feel like I had that opportunity on Undisputed in a lot of ways. I was very empowered. Skip knew my background, you know, in radio, and he knew that I have opinions and, you know, what I'm capable of doing. But, you know, there's beats to shows. In order to make any show successful, you have to follow a structure for it so that, you know, fans know what it is they're watching and what they're getting. So to me, it was more important to do a great television show and learn how to do TV than it was to just insert my opinion whenever, you know, I felt like it. I picked my spots for a reason, and I felt like I was more impactful for that. And it's the same with The Herd, you know. Colin does a great show, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And everybody has a different role in different shows, and I'm going to do the best at what my role is on the herd. And obviously I have my podcast as well, Maybe I'm Crazy podcast. We've been doing it since last football season. We just did our 50th episode the other day, which is really my platform to do whatever, that I want to talk about alongside my co-host, Brandon Newman. So I have the opportunity to give, my opinions. I don't feel constricted at all. I'm very empowered here. And it's really just a great working environment. And I think it's a great time for everybody in the business because there's so much need for content. And with social media and YouTube, the internet, really, there's just such a huge expansion for content. And people want more sports content, especially because sports is the last true live television product. Everything else is re-aired or on delay. Like, it's the last true thing that you have to be in your seat to watch. You can't miss it. So that to me has just expanded sports. There's new leagues popping up. You have the JVA now. Like, it's just, sports is like, it's at the best that it's ever been to me right now. So there's just a lot of opportunities for everyone. So I think it's a good time in the business anyway.
First thing, Joy, I can't believe it's possible that you were more humbled walking through the Fox set than you were going past the Popeyes and the
Pleasure Emporium
and the Pleasure Emporium in Miami Gardens. With basically the barbed wire fence and the Truly Nolan billboard right above us. I cannot in the building with no windows that you worked at for 2 years.
I loved my time at 790, and believe it or not, I was equally as excited to find out that I had gotten the executive producer job on the Hoffman and Zaslow show. That was my big break, so I appreciated that opportunity too. So.
Well, one of the things, we had Amber Wilson on with us a few weeks ago, and she talked about how she sees things changing for women now, and I think what's happening with you is a big example of this, where for a long time, women were given sort of the opportunity to kind of moderate shows, but not actually participate in shows, to give their opinions. I'm just curious, in your time in the business, a couple of things. Was there someone in the business that you kind of looked to as a mentor to help guide you through it? And have you seen the opportunities that women are getting now in sports media in particular, changing?
Yeah, I mean, Dan Levitar was a huge mentor for me in the business. I think all of us have had our careers influenced. If you were, a young media member in Miami by Dan. He's like super supportive, and I've had a lot of people help me throughout my career to just encourage me and empower me. I mean, working with Zaz was a huge opportunity when Zaz and I started our show together. So I've been blessed to work with a lot of great people who always saw the potential in me. I've had some bad experiences too, but so has everyone. I think that the business is definitely changing for women. I mean, the entire world is changing. You know what I mean? Like, there's a great sense of awareness, no matter what political side you're on or what your opinions are about what's happening. Everybody is more aware now than I think ever before because we have such an access to information. So things are definitely changing for women. They're getting more opportunities, and I think that just aesthetically, it's starting to be weird when you only have men talking. Like I've always found it funny that people are like, well, sports are for men. Like, if you just look at the crowd, like just go to a baseball game, it's not overwhelmingly men. Like, there are wives, there are moms, like there's just women who like sports. It's not a weird thing, So I've always just found it odd where it's like, oh, you can't talk about sports because you never played. Like, okay, I'll introduce you to 500 male reporters who have never ever played higher than middle school. So I think the concept about like women covering sports has changed a lot. We've evolved. I don't think that we're past everything just yet. I'm not going to get wild, but there definitely are more opportunities now for women to be opinionists, to be contributors as opposed to just hosts.
Before we get back to today's episode, Chris, I'm going to tell you about another sponsor here on the network. You're going to hear about them not just on our podcast, but on all of the podcasts in our network, because we've got some really cool stuff to give away from Texas Roadhouse. Now, I can speak to this directly because the Texas Roadhouse in Miramar, I'm there every Tuesday night for kids' night. My daughter will not let me miss it. $1.99 kids meals with the purchase of an adult entree. They've also got someone there making balloons for the kids. They have arts and crafts. They had a magician a couple weeks ago. My daughter had her birthday. They put her on a saddle. They sang happy birthday to her. She waved around a napkin. It's a great place to go. And what we're doing with them is we're giving away these $30 gift certificates, dinner for two. So here's the question. This is how you can win. After you listen to today's episode, or at some point, as soon as you possibly can, tweet at 5 Reasons Sports the answer to this question. Where are at least 3 places that Joy Taylor worked at when she was in South Florida? So 3 places. She just mentioned it on the podcast. 3 places that she worked at when she was in South Florida. Send that answer to at 5 Reasons Sports. The first one to send the answer is going to win that $30 gift certificate to Texas Roadhouse, and you can use it at any of the Texas Roadhouse. You can use it at any of the Texas Roadhouse locations in South Florida. And now, back to the episode.
Let's get to some of these opinions and some of the things that you talk about on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, one of the major things is LeBron going to Los Angeles. What was sort of the run-up to free agency and obviously July 1 like from LA's point of view? Because I'd been saying for months that I thought he was going there, but that was just kind of on a hunch. I really didn't have information from as someone who was living there and was consuming sports in that area at the time. What was the build-up to free agency like, and then what was it like once he finally signed?
For me, I've had the feeling that he was coming to LA for a while now. You know, obviously I would have loved for him to go back to Miami, but I never felt like that was a realistic situation. It was more of just like a dream. But it just made sense to me. Like if you looked at what the Cleveland Cavaliers were at the beginning of the season, what they did at the trade deadline, I think it was just always unrealistic, other than them getting out of the East, that they ever had a chance to win the championship. And when LeBron first went back to Cleveland, I felt like, okay, it's done. He's finishing his career there. They're going to do everything that they can possibly do to put together a team that can win multiple championships. It just doesn't make sense for his brand to ever leave. But then things changed, right? Like Magic Johnson taking over the Lakers and Jeannie Buss bringing him in. You don't bring Magic in to just keep doing what you've been doing. You're going to make a difference. And Magic Johnson, I don't know if either one of you have ever spent time around Magic Johnson. I've had the opportunity to meet him. And I just don't understand how you don't do what Magic Johnson is asking you to do when it comes to like business and your basketball future. Like he's like Pat Riley. Like Pat Riley tells you, I can make this happen for you. You're going to believe he can make it happen for you because he's made it happen. You know, so to me, once Magic became involved, and you saw what was going on, all this complete disaster that the Cavaliers were, it just made sense. Like LeBron did what he was going to do. He went there, he brought Cleveland a championship. Nobody thought he could do that, myself included. And now he's in the part of his career where he's not gonna do the Michael route and win 6 finals and 6 finals MVPs. So why not just be Magic Johnson? Why not go to LA, take over a city that if you can take over, you're essentially taking over the world. Because Los Angeles is such an internationally influential city, and you're in Hollywood. You can move into a mogul stage of your career and your life. Your son is great at basketball. The basketball culture here in LA really rivals like New York and, you know, Chicago and some of the greatest basketball cities in the country. It just makes sense. There's too much about it that made sense to me. I would have been shocked if he stayed in Cleveland. And that's why I didn't even give any thought to him going to Philadelphia or any of the Houston. Like, for what? Why not just stay in Cleveland, finish out your career there, don't damage your legacy, and just then go wherever you want to go afterwards. So just LA made the most sense to me, and so that's why I wasn't really surprised. And I don't think a lot of people were that surprised that he ended up here.
So are you still Team Petty, Joy, or did you lose that? Because, I mean, getting away from Zaslow and Tobin, I thought maybe that might free you of that a little bit. But he's coming to your town again. So he didn't go to Miami like you wanted, but have you lost a little bit of that?
I'm definitely still a Petty person. I'm still upset that he left Miami, and I'm not happy with the state that the Heat are in right now. However, I said before he came to LA that if he did leave Cleveland and come to LA, I was going to have to soften on him a bit. And I have, because my whole reason for being petty, I wouldn't have cared where LeBron went if he left Miami. I'd have been upset that he left, but the fact that he went back to Cleveland is what stuck in it for me. Because you know how I feel about Cleveland, and I just couldn't deal with it. So he's not in Cleveland anymore, so I don't have to deal with the Cavs. I'm not talking about Cleveland, except for Baker Mayfield. And he's in LA. And as you guys both know very well, like LeBron changes life for whatever city he goes to. So that to me, like LA is the center of the sports universe. Like I can't complain. And the biggest part to me, biggest element of it for me is I don't want to be that person that when LeBron retires, I'm like, I only enjoyed his 4 years in Miami. I didn't enjoy, watching one of the greatest basketball players we've ever seen. I'm not ready to give him, the better than Michael Jordan nod, but let's call it number 2, number 3 greatest basketball players of all time in his prime. I didn't get to enjoy that because I was too busy being mad about, him going to Cleveland. I just can't do that. I gotta evolve a little bit. So yes, I'm still petty that he went there. Yes, I still had plenty of beef with Cleveland Cavaliers fans, but I don't have to worry about them anymore because they don't matter and they're going to be terrible. So that is my position on it now.
Getting back to the Heat for a second, you mentioned how you weren't pleased with the state of the team. I feel like it's sort of on a national basis, the Heat obviously are not talked about very much, but obviously given the fact that you were based here, you're one of the few kind of national media members that still thinks a lot about the Heat. And I feel like in some respects, it almost allows you to be a fan again in a real way, because when we were talking about the big three Heat every day, it was kind of, it's your job, it's analyzing. Whereas because you're not really talking about them or analyzing them much anymore, you just kind of get to watch and enjoy the games, but obviously you're not pleased with the state of the team at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a rough couple years. Obviously, through no fault of his own, the situation with Chris Bosh kind of triggered a big fallout, a ripple effect of kind of brash decisions that had to be made for the Heat. So it's not that I'm in like panic mode. I enjoyed watching them in the playoffs, even though, we know what happened with the Sixers, which is fine with me. They're a better team. At this point, I just want to see some sort of step up from last year. I want to see Pat Riley get back to bringing in, some free agents. I don't know what's going on with Hassan. I can't figure it out. So if anyone wants to let me know, I'm all ears, because I don't know what's happening with that situation. But yeah, covering the Heat for those 4 years was obviously amazing because everyone was talking about Miami, but we were also the most hated place on earth, and that's not going to be how it is in LA. Like everyone's not going to have that visceral hate for the Lakers the way that they did for the Heat, and there were a lot of elements that played into that. Obviously, Chris Bosh coming, the way LeBron left Cleveland. The big press conference was the 1, not 2, not 3. Like there was a lot of things that happened that led up to people just flipping out about the Heat. But I didn't mind it because I don't mind being the villain. I actually think the villains are more fascinating than the heroes. So to me, it was a great time and it was definitely intense. But you're right, I can just sit back and be a fan. And I'm one of the few left that people do still make fun of me. Like a lot of guests on. I'm like, yes, I'm a Heat fan. They're like, what? Those exist? It's obviously obnoxious, but yeah, it's more relaxed now for me.
It's not just the Lakers out there, though. All of a sudden, LA has 2 football teams, and I know one of them didn't draw particularly well last year. And when I lived out in LA, Joy, this is going way back, 1995. Again, I think, about the time that when Chris was a child, I was out in Los Angeles, and I spent a year out there, and they didn't have the NFL at that time, and they seemed to like that, because they at the time that allowed them to get double headers of games in other cities, and it didn't seem like they missed the NFL all that much. Do you see people embracing it now with the fact that the Rams are obviously very good, and do you think that people will actually catch on with the Chargers this year and fill that stadium a little bit?
Big ol' no to the Chargers. I don't know what the deal is with the Chargers and why that happened, and it just, the whole thing about it doesn't make much sense to me. But the Rams are an interesting situation. So there's a good buzz about the Rams here, but the weird thing about the Rams is they're not like a traditional LA team. Like the Lakers, the Clippers of recent, the Dodgers, they have this LA kind of like a Miami vibe. It's like a little aggressive. There's a Hollywood. They're flashy. You see them out at the big restaurants and paparazzi. You don't see any Rams anywhere. They're super quiet for being such a young new team, like Sean McVay, super young, trendy new coach. You don't see them out and about. So people do support the Rams. They're excited about the Rams being here, and not so much about the Chargers. I don't really hear much about the Chargers here. But I am excited about the Rams this year. I'm a snob, so I don't go to football games anymore. But people do go, and I do think that the Rams over the next couple of years are going to be a really relevant team for everyone.
So you mentioned sort of how much oxygen the Lakers take now. What is that going to be like in terms of that scene? I feel like that's going to be a place that everyone's going to want to be. Is it going to feel like almost in some way, obviously the Shaq Kobe Lakers, they're winning championships. It's massive, but it has to be among the bigger, even not as big as the Big Three Heat, just because of everything that went into that, but it has to be absolutely huge the way that team is going to be supported now.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I think I don't know what the exact number is, but like basically the season tickets went from being like $1,000, like some seats went from like $1,000 to $5,000 within an hour of him signing. Like the Staples Center is going to be just an absolute experience now. Like I went to Heat Lakers game since I've been out here, and it's cool, but it's going to be insane. We all remember how it was in Miami. It's going to be that times 1,000 because it's LA. You're going to have massive stars there every single night, courtside. Not even courtside. It's just going to be filled. The place is going to be filled with famous people, more so than it is already. It's going to be like the hottest ticket in town. It's going to be a big deal. So it's going to be a very expensive ticket, but it is going to be a very big deal. It's going to be an experience. And if they end up doing the winning that I think that they'll end up doing, which is not going to happen this year, but next year, it's going to be one of those things where like it's going to be legendary.
We'll wrap things up here with Joy Taylor with a bit of rapid fire in just a second. But first, a word from one of our sponsors, the International Champions Cup, coming to South Florida in just about a week's time, July the 28th. The big match between Manchester City, the English champions, and Bayern Munich at Hard Rock Stadium in South Florida. Then the other men's friendly, Real Madrid taking on Manchester United. Some really good games going on in the men's edition of the International Champions Cup. Then you have some women's action as well, July 26th and July 29th, a doubleheader of games on both of those days involving 4 women's teams, 2 from France, Olympique Lyonnais, and Paris Saint-Germain, 1 from England and Manchester City, their women's team coming here too, so if you're a Man City fan, women's and men's teams here in the span of about 3 days, and then North Carolina Courage of NWSL. So men's and women's games here in South Florida. The next week's worth of events are going to be awesome for soccer fans in the area starting July 26th. So there's games July 26th, 28th, 29th, and 31st at Hard Rock Stadium. So if you are a soccer fan, you got to be out at Hard Rock Stadium in the next week. Tickets available at internationalchampionscup.com, and you can follow them on social at INT Champions Cup. Check out the International Champions Cup coming to South Florida July 26th through the 31st.
All right, Joe, I wanted to get to some rapid-fire stuff with you now. A few questions, throw them at you, see what you think about them. Harder to talk out of an opinion, Colin Cowherd or Skip Bayless?
Oh, Skip. Skip for sure. Skip is not – Skip's opinion, he believes with his whole heart and soul. Colin, I can throw some stuff his way, throw him a curveball and get him off of it. Skip, no way.
All right, what is the best way to deal with Twitter trolls?
The best way to deal with them is to ignore them. The more fun way to deal with them is to cleverly roast them, which I do maybe once a week. And the worst way to deal with them is to allow them to get you emotional. More often than not, ends up in a disaster when you do that.
Doesn't seem like you do that very often, right? Like it seems like you're able to kind of cut them off and move on.
Oh yeah, I've moved past the stage in my life where I get into an emotional spat with a stranger on the internet. Every once in a while someone will say something that'll be like, yeah, I kind of got to take them down a few pegs, and then I'll do it. But you can't allow. I try to not read comments. I try to not get too deep into the mentions because someone's going to say something that's going to trigger you, and it's just a waste of time, really. I like to interact with people, but if somebody's saying something to bother you, more often than not, they're really just a fan. They just like want some attention, and sometimes they're just mean people. But either way, I got stuff to do today, so I can't be sitting around arguing with people that I don't know. you know?
Harder to do, radio or television?
Oh, harder to do. They both have their own challenges. I would say television just because you have to be conscious of what you look like. So in radio, you can I'd roll in and, sweatpants, hair in a bun, no makeup, slouched over. It doesn't matter if I have bags under my eyes like that. No one sees you. Where on TV, you have to do everything you do in radio, but also pretend that you have good posture and stuff. So there's like another element of like what you are doing is performance-wise in television that you don't have to worry about in radio. So I would say TV for that reason. And
favorite moment from your brother's Hall of Fame induction last summer?
Oh, I mean, that was an amazing experience. Just the whole weekend, getting to be with the family, getting to see, him with all of his college teammates, his speech. But really the moment that stuck out for me is it's a Friday night banquet that they have. So they have, this big private banquet. You can get tickets to it if you're there in the area, but I think they air it on NFL Network. But it's basically a banquet and they introduce all the Hall of Famers, and it's where the Hall of Famers, you first get your gold jacket. And they have this moment where all of the Hall of Famers that are still with us, obviously, they introduce every single Hall of Famer, and they bring them out, they all walk out into this big stage, and then they line up in like this long receiving line. And then they introduce the new Hall of Famers for the first time. Their presenters on stage with their gold jackets. The guys walk through like shaking hands and high fives with all of the Hall of Famers down this receiving line, and then walk up onto the stage and get their gold jacket for the first time. And it's just like bleeping incredible. Like if you're a sports fan, if you're an NFL fan, it's like hardcore. It's an experience I highly recommend you try and see, because you're in a room with all of the greatest living NFL legends of all time, and then you get introduced to the new Hall of Famers who are having this incredibly emotional moment where they get their gold jacket. It's like the first time it becomes really real, and it is so cool. Like, it's so incredible. It's like waterworks everywhere, and it's like this like him being in the room with him when he got the knock on the door, that feeling like of just immense, like I'm so proud. I'm so incredibly happy for him, like getting this acknowledgement for all of his hard work, like seeing everything that, we've been through as a family, and like him growing up and being homeless and having to, work through being in Akron and, putting on weight, coming in undersized and league, just like everything in that moment, like comes to like fruition. And then that moment, that weekend, just him walking through the line and then getting his jacket, like that's the best moment for me.
That's awesome, and that video was, I think the Dolphins ended up putting out the video of that knock on the door, and I don't know who that guy is, but I just imagine him, the guy with like the crazy strong handshake, and all the football players go in for the hug, and it really is incredible video. I didn't know about that ceremony. I've not been to a Hall of Fame yet, and I think I definitely want to go and check that out. So Joy Taylor, again, co-host on The Herd. You can watch on FS1. You can listen to it on Fox Sports Radio or on iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to that station. So, Joy, appreciate the time, and thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, this is Seth Levitt, and I am here with two-time Miami Dolphins team MVP.
Seth, man. They already know this is OJ McDuffie. Why don't you tell them what we're really here for?
We're excited to join the crew at the 5 Reasons Sports Network to bring you our new podcast, The Fish Tank, Dolphins Tales from the Deep. OJ, tell them what they can expect when they dive in.
Yeah, Big Seth. We've got some of your favorite all-time Dolphin players in the tank sharing some of the best stories that you've never heard.
So it looks like Sasquatch because he's chasing me. Because you know Izzo with his clothes on. He's so hairy, that guy.
Wait, why are you looking at me like I know Lizzo with his clothes off?
Seth will know Izzo with his clothes off.
So make sure you find The Fish Tank on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or if you're one of those Android people, Google Play Music, or on several cross-platform apps, including Podbean and Stitcher.
Thanks for diving in.